and welcome to this week's edition of RavPod. We're going to study a pasuk from the Parsha, where the pasuk identifies a season when the 12 scouts left the Israelite camp in the desert to get information regarding the promised land. The pasuk says that when the scouts went into Canaan, "V'hayamim yemei bikurei anovim." It was a season when the early grapes were getting ready to be harvested. Other than giving us a time marker, is there any other information in that pasuk that can help us appreciate what was going on and perhaps why this mission ended in such a disaster? Yemei bikurei anovim, the season of the early grapes, is a little bit like the season we're in now regarding summer fruit right here in Connecticut. Peaches, watermelon, corn on the cob is beginning to show up in the grocery stores. But we all know that as enjoyable as it might be, it's not yet anywhere near as ripe and sweet and juicy and wonderful as these fruits are going to be in late July, early August. That's really prime time for the fruits and vegetables that we enjoy here in New England in the summer. The early ones are okay, but with patience and waiting, the ones that come later are oh so much better. When the spies returned to the Israelite camp and they brought these grapes, it's significant. They were not fully ripe yet. They were bikurei anovim. They were the earliest grapes of the season, sort of like the early fruits here. They look good. They were tantalizing, but they weren't prime. They weren't really ready. Hence, I would like to propose that when the Israelites saw fruit that was not really ready, not prime, not as sweet and juicy as it might have been or could have been, it sort of set them back. Remember, they had never been to the land. They did not know what to expect. And if this is the best that the land could offer, no wonder that they were despondent and discouraged. Patience is a virtue, and patience is what they did not have, or at least had not yet been properly developed. Going back several decades, the voice of Orson Welles was used to sell a major brand of wine here in the United States, and the line that appeared in their television commercials was, "We shall sell no wine before its time." The message there was that that company would take its time and not bring anything to the market until the product was the best version that could be presented to the consumer. The consumer was being assured that there's patience and there's a payoff, there's a reward for patience. For the Israelites, who were at the time 11 days out from the land of Canaan, would be decreed to 40 years in the desert. There are many reasons why they were in the desert for 40 years, and that perhaps will be a topic of a future RavPod Devar Torah. But think of it this way. Striking a match kindles a flame, but it requires the wax of the candle or the wick of the lantern to truly give a light that would last. It requires perseverance, patience, and belief in the possible. That is why, one reason among many, that Bnei Yisrael had to spend 40 years in the desert. When we think in terms of our own personal pursuits of spirituality and relationships with our religion and mitzvot that we learned about, oftentimes we wish that simply doing the mitzvah once or reading a page in a book would tell us everything we need to know. But that's not often the case. That's rarely the case. It requires allowing the fruit to ripen, to become sweet and juicy. It requires repeating a mitzvah over and over again to gain an appreciation for it. The first time a person comes to a Shabbat tefillah, It may be hard to understand why it lasts 2 hours on a Shabbat morning. But people who are accustomed to coming to Shul on Shabbat appreciate the opportunities to meditate, to sing, to study, and to share time together. Spirituality, like grapes, watermelon, corn, all require the patience to allow them to develop to the maximum potential. With patience, religion can also grow within our souls and become virtues in our lives. We shall sell no wine before its time. Let us not rush mitzvot in our lives, but rather cultivate them with patience. And in time, everything that is Jewish will find its way towards sweetness in our lives. Shabbat Shalom. Looking forward to seeing you in Shul this week. Bye-bye.